if they paid us to show up, it might be good too.
Because you're so damn cute. That's why they should pay you to show up.
There you go. I'll take that.
The cuteness quotient is huge. Oh, we're live.
Yeah.
And the Barry has a high cute quotient. How about that? I think that's an okay thing to get on the live tape.
Okay, I guess I'm now out.
Now you blush the color of your shirt. You're the color of your shirt now.
If you're listening on audio now, you know what's going on.
This is what happens behind the scenes.
Indeed.
This is WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio, TV, and podcast #1 Internet Singles Talk Network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine. We're back for more fun and games.
Fabulous in pink.
Yes.
So today we're talking a little bit more of in a couple slant. Usually we talk a lot about solo and dating, but today we're talking about, oh, she's so good, she put it up. I didn't have to read it off my phone. Ways to help couples feel more comfortable with each other. And, you know, it's interesting how when I ask people what their goals are, it's not always the first thing they say, you know, when they come to me for coaching, but it's often included pretty high on the list. We want to feel more comfortable, or we want to feel as comfortable as we used to, or we want to feel less uncomfortable. And
right.
I really do believe this is a very high value to both people to individually feel comfortable while you're in a relationship, and then how as a blended couple do you feel comfortable with each of you in this relationship, together in the relationship, and have the relationship feel comfortable too.
Absolutely.
And it's so funny. I had 3 clients in a row that are in pretty serious relationships. They're not living together yet, but they're pretty serious. And the big things that are coming up is, well, but this is what I like. And when I do it, they don't like it, or they don't like it as much as me. And how come they don't like it as much as me? I'm like, because we're different people, one. And often, what the male person likes is pretty different from what the female person likes. So now you have 2 reasons why maybe what you like isn't what they like. And then nobody's going to be comfortable, right?
There's also a third piece of that too, which is, did they actually ask the other person if they like what they liked? I mean, duh. Basically, you know.
That's really a
But I'm going to jump in at the beginning also, something to say at the beginning of this, because you said about how we're talking about couples more than just dating. But I would suggest that what we're talking about here is actually something very useful if you are single before you get into a relationship. Because obviously we're talking about how do you set up the plan for the relationship to include this as a high value piece, as you said already. But also, how do you start comfortable in dating before you get to being a couple? So with this, so if you're starting to tune out because you think we're talking about couples only, know that we're talking to everybody in this context, because there are points here that can help the singles become couples by using this tool, these methods as well.
Always such a good point, Barry.
Skills.
I tell people, you know what Barry does? He makes me look and sound good. Even better. I'm okay. Sometimes he makes it even better, and I appreciate it a lot.
I do what I can.
Thank you. So certainly there's the beginning, whether you're not in a couple yet or you're in a couple. What are the things in your life that make you feel comfortable? How much alone time? How much talking time? How neat are you? How messy are you? How early of a riser? How late a stayer-upper? I mean, there's so many things to just figure out who you are, that when I'll ask these questions to people, they're like, I never really thought of it. They know the answer usually when we talk about it, but initially they're like, I haven't really thought about that. I don't really know. So take an inventory, whether you're in a couple or not, to figure out what are the mandatory things that make you feel comfortable. That's the absolute place to start.
There's 2 more essentials down to that list, by the way. One of which is the toothpaste cap on or off. Actually, toothpaste cap on or off. Do you squeeze from the bottom or from the middle of the tube? And toilet paper up or down?
Oh yeah, definitely add those 2. You know, my first marriage, I gave up. I got tired of having the conversation because I'm the squeeze from the bottom. He was the. I said, we're just gonna have 2 tubes.
Yeah.
And oh my God, it was so much easier with 2 tubes of toothpaste.
That's the key right there. There you go. That's how to be more comfortable.
Uh-huh. But then you know what I found out? They have it's called a key. I don't know why, because it doesn't look like one, but you put it on the end of the toothpaste tube and you
Mhm.
keep smooshing it up.
Yeah.
It helped. He still smushed in the middle. So I said, okay, we're just having two tooths. But so many different things. Are you always late? Are you always early?
Hmm.
Do you take a long time to get ready? Do you take a short time to get ready? I mean, there are so many things.
Oh, yeah.
You know, do you have eating constraints? Do you have family constraints? Do you have pet challenges? I mean, there are so many, many, many things. How much outside time do you need? How much inside time do you need? So take an inventory about what makes you feel the most comfortable throughout your days and your weeks and your months. And it could
Yeah.
change over years. And then what really makes you uncomfortable? Because you need to know that too.
I mean, we can make a long list of all these things we're talking about, because I'd also add to that list, do you call or do you text?
Mhm.
You know, that thing about being on time, you know, are you often on time, or are you late, or are you early? But the other part of that is do you care if you're on time, late, or early? Because the thing is, if you're somebody who is pedantic about being on time and you're always running late, that's going to be an issue between the two of you. But if the person who's on time just likes to be on time just for themselves, doesn't care about anybody else, meaning that if you come in late, doesn't matter to them, then
Mhm.
you're cool. So it's
Mhm.
knowing those parameters, but also the padding on either side of those things as well, you know?
Yeah. So what are the things that are really a part of you that could be quirks or idiosyncrasies? You know, I've talked many times about how I'm the person that gets the suitcase out 3 days ahead of time and messes around with my angst packing list.
Yeah.
And I'd had lots of people think that they had a lot of opinions about those. And my late husband went, oh, okay. I mean, as soon as I told him, he was like, oh, not a problem. And I don't think he would have had a problem. I'd learned enough to say out loud, this is who I am. To hear
Right.
that somebody didn't have a problem, it was lovely.
Absolutely. But that's the see that, and again, that's a key you put out right there,
Mhm.
is you communicated. And this is one of the things I want to talk about, is adamant and requirement in couples, because the challenges for most couples, why they don't feel more comfortable with each other oftentimes, is because they don't communicate the simple stuff. Because what we're talking about here, it is very fundamental. It's nuts and bolts. It's like the everyday stuff. It's not the big things like, smoking, or, or polyamory, or that sort of stuff. However, if you don't communicate those things, the assumptions start building up. And then when the other person doesn't do what you expect them to do, you get upset over the most simplistic little thing, which is not helping either one of you.
No.
So to communicate, like you said, the simple thing, like bringing that suitcase out because you pack ahead and you plan ahead and you bring so much stuff, that's like, it's like forewarned is forearmed sort of thing, in a
Uh,
sense, what's going on. But it's that sort of thing. Like if you, like I said earlier about the toothpaste, if you tell your partner, by the way, when I use toothpaste, I love to make sure the cap goes back on the toothpaste. What about you? They say it doesn't, it doesn't matter to me. Great. If you say it's like I don't care about it, I don't put it back on. Again, forewarned is forearmed. So knowing these things ahead of time makes the ability to be comfortable with each other much more available, because you're not going in and being surprised by ta-da, oh no, they don't do the toothpaste the way I want, or whatever that is. So
and
little things.
it can become a big friggin' thing.
Oh yeah,
Amazing.
I know couples have broken up over that sort of simplistic a thing. Absolutely.
And because the underlying thing is they obviously don't care about my feelings. They don't
Right.
understand that this is really important to me. And so I always say, so did you tell them?
Hmm.
How important did you tell them it is? If this is really, really, really important to you. So I always say, it's not fair to get mad at somebody for doing or not doing something you didn't tell them about ahead of time. It's so unfair. It's
That
so
is
unfair.
this. Well, here we go into the little side detour into the whole thing about assumptions. We have this wonderful gift or handicap, depending how you look at it, of presuming the other person will do things the way we want because they love us, because I love them. It's like, because if you love me, you would do this, is the unspoken commandment that we use to basically try to make the other person somehow wrong because they do something different from what we expected. And this is the thing, is we start getting an upset and blaming or judgment about the other person because they do something different from what we expected, because we didn't actually ask them ahead of time, by the way, this is how I do things this way. Do you do things that way or somewhere else? If they told you, you wouldn't be having that judgment in the first place. So again, forewarned is forearmed, meaning do have the conversations ahead of time that, if you didn't have them, could leave you in a bit of a lurch.
Even with the littlest thing, which is going to sound so silly, because, what I hear from couples when they've been married a really long time, I go, so what do you think is part of the reason? And always included in the top 3 is don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And yet when I talk to them about it, because I've learned to ask this additional layer, did you talk about it before?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they would, oh yeah, that's such a little thing. Oh yeah. And my family had a therapist friend for a really long time ago, and she wrote this book about setting priorities. Okay, so tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, everything can't be a 10, the 10s, and the things that are 1s, like you really don't care, and they would match up. Everybody can't have the same opposite 10. So how do we? And then what are the things that you don't care? And she ended up naming. She wrote a book about it and said, "Is there anything less than 0?" Because this one guy was asked about some really bizarre thing, and he said to the woman, "Is there anything less than 0? Because I can't tell you how little I don't care about it." And it was such a fun remark. Wasn't that such a fun way to put it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't even care even a little. So it might turn out that if you actually say something out loud, they're not going to care.
Right. And that's the thing. Again, made the thing about assumptions is you can't assume they won't care. So you've got to be asking. And as you said, it is the simplistic stuff. It's these nuts and bolts, these simple little things. But the thing about that is, that grain of sand in the shoe can wear a hole through your foot. So don't think it's so small you don't have to worry about it. It's important, again, having the communication and the conversation. Yes, it's important to plan ahead with the big stuff about, family and house and money and sort of things too. But if you're going to be living together in an intimate relationship and you're going to get married and you're committing to spending years, maybe your whole lifetime together, ideally, it isn't in the wedding vows to talk about the toothpaste. I'm coming back to this for a simple reason, because it's that level of simplicity that if you don't communicate, it can become that grain of sand in your shoe. It can become very uncomfortable if you don't deal with it up front.
You're so right. You're so right. So it's funny because sometimes in some of the questionnaires I've seen, because I've asked therapists for their questionnaires about what they use for pre-married counseling. And also in some of the bridal showers I did, one of the key questions was, which one does the toilet paper which way? And it was funny how they hadn't talked about it, or they had talked about it. And I'm like, but they're like, why do they? I go, how many of you have to have it away? Because some people didn't care, but there was a whole, especially a room full of women, they cared. Let's see, this is why you have, if you really care, if you don't care, you could ask the other person, do you care? Because I don't care. But if you really care, please ask. Please ask. Yeah, my big thing too with my first husband was he didn't pick up anything. And I didn't like the mess. But I said, I'm not willing to put stuff away, but I'm not willing to have the mess. So how do you feel about if I just take all your stuff and I'm going to put it all on the floor in the big walk-in closet? So if you are looking for anything, that's where it's going to be. And he thought about it for a minute. He goes, okay. So every once in a while he'd ask, have you seen? I go, it's probably in the closet. And I have to tell you, we thought about a lot of things, but not that. So the house looked as neat as I wanted it to be. And I didn't feel resentful about putting all this stuff away. And he always knew where to go look. People thought that was the most crazy arrangement. Oh, see, she heard your voice. She came by.
Yeah, she is.
But it worked.
Right.
The 2 toothpaste tubes and putting his stuff in the bottom of the closet. It really worked. And this is back in my 20s when I knew nothing and I thought I knew everything.
Yeah, but you had some skills even then.
I know. Isn't that nice to hear?
Right.
So we all have quirks. We all have things. And especially people that have lived alone for a long time, you don't always know that not everybody feels the same way as you and I have lived alone for a long time.
Yep.
To go, so what are my weird idiosyncrasies? Or not weird, but just maybe somebody else doesn't feel the same way, doesn't have the same priorities, doesn't have such a big feeling about it.
It is the simple things that really become things that make or break a relationship. The big things are obviously important, and we talk about that a lot in our talks about those deal breakers and this big stuff we have in a relationship. But on this level, and I know it's not the only thing we talk about in this conversation, but It's the simple stuff that is so key that can make or break a relationship. And it sounds so simple. So toothpaste, toilet paper, who gets up early, that sort of thing, texting, all the different things you plan on ahead. It's like you can set up a relationship. If you really think about a relationship with the desire, commitment, and willingness you have to be in that partnership with that person, then are you willing to look at even the simplest stuff, the microscopic stuff? Is that there's a term that's in a book by again Katie Henricks called Conscious Loving, which is a book I read 30 years ago. That is probably one of the seminal books on relationships. It's really about codependency. And one of the things they talk about that is called the microscopic truth. And that idea about leaving nothing on the table in terms of communicating what's real for you, what's important to you, and what's as simple is for you, can make a relationship much healthier and happier because you've actually been willing to speak transparently, so to speak. And so, yes, in the conversation about these little needy things we're talking about, it's important, but also the microscopic truth, meaning that you don't hold back or you don't gloss over things. You speak fully about what you are feeling, experiencing, reacting to, so you can actually have real conscious communication.
And that's such a perfect point, because often, people will come to me and they've got big things.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of boils down to like one of these little things that snowball. They haven't even figured out how to talk about the big things. So I teach them, this is why you go, but that's such a little thing. Practice talking about the little thing,
Yes.
The mundane things. Because when it's little, you go, I just wanted to tell you about this about me. Did you know this about me? Or, gosh, I didn't know that about you. Tell me more about that. That you get the muscle built up so that if something big happens out of the blue, it didn't come building up as something, it was just something that happened huge. You've now got that muscle that you can go, oh, well, yeah, we can have that hard conversation, that big conversation, because we've already succeeded in having all these little ones. So you need to go, yay, we succeeded at that conversation. We should cheer each other, because people don't, for a lot of reasons. Either, oh, that's too small, or that's too big. Well, then nobody's talking about anything, and then your relationship's breaking apart.
Absolutely. And that's, again, one of the most fundamental parts of relationship is communication. And it is challenging, and we talked about this again in other episodes many times before about how men and women communicate differently, think differently, respond differently. That's we don't go in detail here necessarily because we have it covered again in previous episodes. So go back and listen to the previous ones if you want to know about that. But the thing I want to say, is that understanding when you go into a relationship with somebody who's of the opposite gender, that their way of communication is likely not the same as yours. So the assumptions you start making if you don't ask questions, you don't bare your soul, so to speak, and speak from places of real transparency, is you make stuff up. And the challenge with making stuff up is oftentimes you're not even close to being right.
Yep.
So better ask and be corrected or get clear information than make assumptions and be 99% of the chance to be wrong about the person. Because again, we're going to hear about how to be more comfortable with each other. Well, being accepted versus judged is definitely a key part of that. So look for ways to make that easier. And
if you think you know something, then the two words I've been telling people are question. Gosh, I'm so curious. This is what you meant, or this is what I heard, or would you say that again? And then confirm. Oh, this is what I heard.
Right.
Oh, this is what you meant. Oh, okay. They come back to me and go, oh, we could have had 12 fights this week if we hadn't done that. I go, isn't it amazing how just,
Yep.
Even if you really, really know, every once in a while, there's somebody who's in a mood who's like, well, weren't you listening? Or didn't you care? But most of the time they're like, oh, you really wanted to hear what I said. Oh, sure. I could tell you more about that. It's very well received, especially if I've talked to them ahead of time. It's like honoring. Oh, you really thought what I said was so important. You have more questions about it. Oh, you really don't want to misunderstand me. Well, that's a really good bonus, especially for men, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's the question and confirm. It's been really, really helpful for people to make them stop when they start feeling that feeling of, well, how dare them and why would they? And oh my gosh. I mean, we've all had that feeling more than once in like an hour. That how do you short circuit that? Because they could say something that's going to irritate you. They could be saying something that you're not going to like. At least confirm it before you get all upset.
Well, let's think about assumptions. You can make assumptions to make the other person wrong, or make assumptions to make you wrong.
That's really true.
So, you know, so and I know that, you know, say about there's the this quote I remember hearing from, like, you know, there's no dumb questions, just dumb assumptions. That's in business.
Oh.
It's also very true about relationships.
Oh.
You know, so okay, so our producer's having some issues. I'm glad that she's okay.
Yes.
So get back on track. Let's think about.
She was having a storm outside her house, but we seem to be okay now.
Yes, but we're on the West Coast, so I guess we're okay.
Yeah, I guess so.
This okay, got it. Sorry, getting back. What's the word? Behind the scene messages from our producer, so just a little chatting. So yes, we got it. We're handling it. Thank you, Cece. But again, there's another piece of the puzzle. Like, that's communication. It helps. So the thing about making assumptions, you know, it's like it's better to ask silly questions than make some bad assumptions.
Yeah.
In relationships, we have this habit. You know, the one that several of my clients and a lot of women have said over the years is, you know, if you really love me, you'd understand. You know what I want. Those sort of things. Men don't say the same thing, but have the same wiring.
Yeah.
Is that they think that she would know, because she's a woman, what he wants without him to ask for it.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about assumptions, is you get really upset with somebody when they don't do what you didn't ask him for. I'm going to say it again so you get the point of that, how stupid, how crazy that is you get upset with somebody because they don't do what you didn't ask them for.
Yep.
And you wonder why things don't work out sometimes, where you don't get comfortable. It's like, it helps to be willing to ask, even for the simplest thing. Mm-hmm. You know? And it's, yes, there's certain things you get into the routine of, like, for example, maybe it's with food. Maybe, you know, you love spice, your partner doesn't. You know, from that point forward, you know, not to put spice in the food, and they love putting spice in you put spice in your food. That simpler thing can be something, once it's said, it's done. But if you don't ask, you can have some issues with even that one if you don't ask up front.
Yeah.
So having that willingness to ask, and it's almost retraining your mind to stop making leaps of assumption and to go, you know what, let me just double check this. Let me ask the question and find out. Yeah. Because secondly, from that piece is when you do ask the questions, the person who's being asked will generally feel warmer towards you because they feel they're cared for because you've asked the question. So it is a benefit to ask the question for both of you.
Yes. Asking questions 99% of the time brings you closer.
Yes.
So that's a really good percentage reason to do it.
I think so.
and assuming that if the other person loved you or cared about you enough, they would just know stuff, sets you both up for failure.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, generally, in the male-female world, men aren't attuned to subtle. We need to just say it out loud, ladies. Yeah. Say, what do you need and want? Don't hint. Don't use innuendos. Just tell them in short sentences, like Twitter, get to the point. This is what would make me happy. Or this is what I need and want. Or, gosh, would you be available to do blah, blah? Or would this be something you'd consider doing with me? Ask the question out loud. Don't, oh, you know, my friends invited me to go do this thing, and I'm not sure if I want to go, and I might have to dress up. And he's like, and the point is? And you're assuming he's going to go, oh, did you want me to go? He's not going to understand that.
Right.
No, really. Maybe a gay guy, and maybe a guy that you've hit him over the head with this a few times. He now knows, oh my God, if she starts talking this way, I think I'm supposed to ask if I'm supposed to go. But just speak up. Be your nice, empowered Wonder Woman boots person and say, you know, I've been invited to this party, and I think it'd be really fun if you want to go. Would you like to go with me? And then he gets to say yes or no, but at least you spelled it out.
Right. And this is, again, the thing, is asking simple questions, asking honest questions, getting to find out what you want. But the other part, as you said, which I want to lean into as well, this is the other part about being couples feel more comfortable, is recognizing that, as John Gray has said, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. The way we communicate, how we think, how we feel, how we express, how we talk, are different between genders. And we're talking about specifically for heterosexual relationships here. But the understanding is that each partner functions differently means that, as you said, when women talk about something they're going to go to, they may not get to the actual point of saying, do you want to come as well? So gently as the man to say to her, are you asking me to come with you? Yeah. Doesn't hurt when you say gently. Don't demand of her, and don't be, because sometimes guys are so tired. It's like, enough already. Do you want me to go? Yeah. Unless you're playing with them, messing with each other, but that sort of thing. The other piece of that, though, is a woman is recognizing we're talking to a man is that what you're telling him is 95% more than he needs to know.
Yep.
It's about 5% what you're communicating is what he really wants to know.
Yep.
So be willing to actually speak to the point first. It may be nice to decorate, but get into the point so he knows, because otherwise he's tuned out before you get to the end of it,
Yes, please put the point first. That's such a good term. That's such a good point.
Right.
Okay. Would you like to go to this thing that's at this time on this day? Do you have it available? And then if he says yes, you can say, okay, the rest of the pieces are, you need to wear a tux or a suit and a tie. And you can now say no if that's a problem. But he might not even have the date available. So let's start with the point. But the thing I said about, this is my friend and we've known each other for a while, and you've been thinking about, the guy's like, where's the point? Really, I want to hear, and I really want to please you, and I'd like to be able to answer, but I have no idea. And you just watch their eyes glaze over. And they know, am I supposed to say something? Am I not supposed to say something? I have no idea. I'm going to be in trouble. It's awful.
So to underscore this point, to make sure I get it, because again, we're talking about differences between the genders, is that women tend to communicate opening up and expressing and adding more value to what's being said.
Yeah.
Men are more about clarity of point, endings of conversations. They get to the bottom line and know what's going on. Great. Yeah. So understanding when you communicate to the opposite sex, to understand the differences. So when you communicate, you can ideally at least lean somewhat into how the other person thinks. You can communicate with them. Because yes, it's like for a man, it's definitely hard to be embellishing as much as a woman is explaining a certain situation, just to be clear. But at least make the effort, because then she'll feel more comfortable.
It's helpful. So, if you've listened to any of our podcasts, I love shaggy dog stories. I want to include all the details. And my husband had permission that he just knew if I was going to launch, I probably was going to launch into the long story. And he had permission to say, have the bandwidth for the Reader's Digest right now. And I go, okay. And I really, contrary to lots of people's belief, I can tell really short stories, and it's so unsatisfying. I will say that out loud. I can get to short stories if I have to, because it's important to me to have him hear it and respond. And then our other agreement was, I'll let you know when I can hear the rest later. And he was really good about it. And he would listen to all the details. And he was kind of a detail kind of talking person too. So he could be sympathetic about that.
Right.
But instead of insisting on all the 15 minutes, I could do 3. And it worked really, really well. And there were times I go, okay, it has to be Shaggy Dog Plus, or it has to be Reader's Digest Plus. So it might be 5 minutes. And he'd go, okay. So that was a really helpful understanding that we had. And it didn't start out right in the very beginning, even though there was supposed to be a coach in the room, because I'd never had somebody who was so willing to do this with me. It was really fun. He go, okay, I can do this. And right now I can do this. I'm like, oh, okay. It was so helpful. So he was just as good of a communicator. That was one of his big strengths in his life in general. So it really worked for us to be able to decide what would make the other person the most comfortable at the time, which really, if you love them, you want them to be the most comfortable at the time. You can't have them sacrificing their comfort to you all the time. In fact, it can't be all about you all the time. It really can't.
In fact, yeah, exactly. And what I was going to say was, it sounds like your husband was somewhat unusual, to say the least. because he wasn't commonly thinking that way, but a great model for other people. So other men listening to this, other
Mhm.
women men need to listen to this too, about that understanding of knowing how to negotiate that to find what's right. Because the truth is, what you said to each other, there was no implication of right or wrong, who was better, who was worse, just a preference level. And again, being more comfortable. If you can express your preferences, the other person knows what works for you. Not it has to be hard and fast, must be this or die, you know. But make it something that's negotiable and conversational. That can be saying, my preference is this. If you do it, great. If you can't, I understand, but if you can, be even better. And you make it that level of flexibility.
Flexibility. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I used to use the word compromise a lot, and it always seemed to feel like somebody was really giving up more than the other. So now I love the word negotiate, because if
Mm,
you're this, then you both move. Nobody's losing. That's the
right.
thing with compromise. You feel like somebody's just really gone the other way. Where both
Yeah.
people get to get what they want and need, maybe not exactly as they wanted it, but you still, I always felt satisfied. And he always felt satisfied. Well, not 100%, most of the time.
Right.
That's the point, that if you both felt okay, okay would be great, and okay enough
Hmm.
after the exchange. That's the optimum. And I think that's really where the word negotiation comes in. And then you both say, okay, I was comfortable with that. I mean, since we're going to come back to the title, how can you stay comfortable having conversations with each other? Because fighting and anger and frustration and resentment, which is what happens when you're not doing this, is all very uncomfortable. I mean,
Hmm.
that's when there's silences. And I used to, oh my God, my first marriage, I walked around with this storm cloud like a cartoon character around over my head a lot. And because I didn't know to do any of this stuff,
Yep.
we were also not a very good match for each other. And I really had no tools. So now that I have these tools, it's really fun to have that kind of conversation with somebody. And so the men are like amazed when I'll say, well, could you explain more about that? Really? I go, yeah, I don't want to assume. And they, really? Or, well, if you did it this way, that would even be better for me. What do you think? And they go, really? I get really a lot. I feel sort of like the Scooby-Doo dog where they go, what?
But again, the let's just say that in some ways we've had advanced training because we've been studying stuff for a long time. So if you listen to us and you start to say, well, how can I deal with that? How to deal with that stuff? You start by starting at the first step. You do the basic level first. What we're teaching here is nuts and bolts that we've learned over the years, and some deeper stuff we've learned we're not going to teach here because we've been to work for a long time. However, for those of you who are listening, who this is a first step, great. Take two or three of what we shared, two things from what we shared, and use them and see how they work out. Then go back and listen to this or watch this again and take some more steps from this. What we're attempting to give you is a starter kit, so to speak.
Yeah.
Ways you can get a relationship to be more comfortable and more enjoyable for both of you. And as I said earlier, actually, I want to cut to this for a second. I said earlier in the beginning of the conversation of how this really applies to when you're single as well, when you're preparing to date, to walk in or to enter the dating experience with a person where your focus is being more comfortable with each other from the get-go, is all the things we're talking about here can be early dating conversations. I mean, if you're on the first date with somebody and say, which way do you do your toothpaste? It can be a fun conversation starter. You'll actually open up to a whole different way of talking. So why not play with some of the things? One, because you'll know ahead of time, oh, this person does something I love or something I don't love. But also you can actually make it into a conversation that becomes really richer than just saying, what do you do for fun? It's like there are so many things you can bring into conversation. So my suggestion in a way is that when you're going on dates, have some of these points handy because you never know what they can come in, can do that conversation.
And practice on your family, practice on your friends, practice on colleagues. I mean, work that muscle. Because it's like everybody was, oh, I want to save it for the person, the person that's the date. Well, then what I tell them isn't often what happens is you get in front of them and you go, blah, 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 and you have no idea what to say because
Exactly.
your brain goes into jello. So if
Yeah.
you've already practiced in atmospheres where you already know the people and you're kind of comfortable with the people and you're like, I'm practicing this new skill, or, I don't really know how they squeeze the toothpaste because they're my friend and I don't live with them. Well, it'd be really interesting to know how they do that. So that you've now practiced, 10 times with 10 different people in your life. ask them about the toothpaste squishing thing, because how fun is that? And you could get some really variety of answers. Who knows? They could be kind that use a whole different kind, like powder or something, and you'll just learn that about them. How fun is that?
There
So
you go.
what we're doing is giving you little baby steps, because
Mhm.
not only have we been learning this for a long time as professionals, and we teach it as professionals, we've made all these mistakes in the past.
Shh, shh, shh. Don't tell them.
That's why we know it firsthand. We don't just hear from other people. We're like, oh yeah, I did that. Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah, been there, done that. Oh yeah.
we can call ourselves out, because the Maya Angelou saying is that you did best what you knew then, and now that you know better, you do better. So I
But yeah,
give myself a pass, and Barry a pass, and all my clients a pass, because you didn't know any better.
right.
I didn't know any better in my first marriage. I could not have done anything differently than I did. I really have to give myself grace about that. And thank goodness I really did learn a lot more between then and now, and I can do a lot better. And I'm still learning. That's the even more exciting thing. There's never an ending to the learning part. So if you go, oh my gosh, I'll never know as much as them. Well, it's not your job. It's our job. I don't know as much about your job as you do, whoever's listening to this. So
Right.
I want you to say, oh, I want to learn more about this so that I can be more comfortable in all the relationships I have, in your family and your friends and your colleagues and your romantic ones, because all these tools can be used with every single person in your life.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. The thing that for me, just the experience of our relationships being such good mirrors to us about how we treat ourselves. Because I know, shift gears slightly. The thing about being more comfortable is that we're talking about how to make each other more comfortable by doing these questions, but to make ourselves more comfortable. Part of it is to one have say mercy, to be gentle with ourselves, because yes, as we both shared, we have made plenty of mistakes in the past and we learn along the way. Ideally, we're getting better each time. Yes, it'd be nice to accelerate that better. See, that way when you get in the next relationship, you're so far ahead of where you were before, quantum leaping from where you were before, then it gets even better. But the thing is, you do the best you can with what you know at the moment. And ideally, what we're sharing in these talks, in all of our talks, frankly, your ability to date and have healthier relationships and have a more enjoyable experience yourself and be more comfortable with yourself has been improving dramatically just by listening to what we've been sharing. So even if you haven't been dating, you got some good stuff to work with now. So this sort of idea of being more comfortable is, if you're single and you're not dating at the moment, do some research. Watch videos like ours, or listen to our podcast, or go read some books, or go see a coach or a therapist, somebody else, so they can help you navigate into a place of being more whole yourself. Because oftentimes dating for some people is so trepidatious, or filled with trepidation, because they don't have the access to the comfort inside themselves. So they're always trying to be on best behavior and not make mistakes, and try to be perfect on the outside, even though inside it's all a royally massive excellence. you know so the idea about being more comfortable is, if you're single, this is the best time, and I've said this many times in my own work and in my coaching, is when you're single is the best time to learn about relationships, because it's better to understand the mistakes you might make and do something about them when you're prepared, like learning how to be more comfortable, being more communicative, being more transparent. So when you do date and get into another relationship, you're way ahead than you would have been if you just waited till you got into a relationship. So do the
Very
work.
true. And we've talked so much about how important it is when you're dating, especially, to be your most authentic self.
Yes.
And when you're uncomfortable, guaranteed you're not going to be your authentic self unless you talk about it.
Right.
Oh my gosh, it's the first meeting and I'm nervous. Are you nervous? Oh, I'm going to tell you something about myself that other people have thought was kind of strange, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I mean, that's being very authentic while you're being uncomfortable. But
Absolutely.
most of the time when we're trying to hide who we really are, or we're nervous that somebody's going to disapprove of something, or we misunderstand and we get all our feathers in a ruffle, that's not being our authentic self. Nothing's comfortable going to come out of that. Nothing. If you want to be comfortable with yourself and in your relationship, then staying current on, well, how do I feel about that? And maybe I need to get some more information from me about that. And I need to get some more information from the other person about that. And my head keeps telling me to tell you this story because I think it was so cute. And it was a potential for a misunderstanding because I'm coaching the woman. So she had got some new lingerie. And he came over and they undressed and they had a lovely long lovemaking session. And then she said to him, "What'd you think of my new lingerie?" And he went, "Lingerie? Lingerie. Oh, I think I remember taking something off. Really? Lingerie? Oh, show me so I can see it." And she went, and before meeting me, she would have gone out. So she said, "Oh, here." And he went, "Oh, I really like it. But can I tell?" I didn't even notice. I was so, and I tell women this all the time, I was so into your naked body.
Mm-hmm.
I
Hello.
don't notice anything else. But in the past, she would have had a problem
Meltdown.
with.
Yeah.
And I knew you would giggle. I just had to tell you this story from a guy's point of view. You're like, there was lingerie. I don't remember.
It's like lingerie. What? I was more just
Clothes,
what's inside of it.
clothes, naked woman. I don't remember anything in between.
Right.
Do you love that story? And
So
she said, "I'm so proud of myself." And I said, "I am so proud of you." She said,
mhm.
because for 1 second, that
Yeah.
little witchy person, and then she was like, "No, he was into me.
Yeah,
My
take it
things
as a
were into
win.
me than the lingerie." I'm like, "Yeah,
That's a win.
isn't that a great story?"
I love that.
But the
And
kind of stuff that we get upset about that's so unnecessary was
mhm.
so packaged in that story. I had to tell it.
Yeah, I mean that is such a great. I mean, I'm laughing, chuckling to myself. It's like that's such a key again. As I said earlier, men and women think and talk differently. We
Yeah.
see things differently too. So when a woman's noticing the finesse and the nuance of the little rosebuds on her lingerie, he's not aware of the lingerie in period.
It's true.
So understand that corollary everywhere. That in fact, in all sorts of areas where we as men don't always notice stuff that you think we should, and then you start judging and blaming us or feeling guilty yourself because you didn't teach us enough, whatever that was. Say no, none of that stuff is relevant. It's simply a difference of perception, and it's okay to go, "Did you notice this?"
Yeah.
If you want to do it ahead of time, that's fine too. But be willing to say that so you don't feel like they should have noticed or they shouldn't have seen this or I should have or they should see all that crap. This is a key again about relationships is that when we start thinking ahead, being conscious ahead, to actually be willing to ask questions ahead of time or to be prepared going in, is such an easier way of having relationships work more smoothly, more gracefully, more comfortably. Because we have got a bad habit, as I said before, like we go into relationships, like being in best behavior and trying to get things perfect. And the first chink in the armor, we're doomed.
Mhm.
So to be upfront with everything, be honest with everything, be real, as you said, like being in that place of authenticity and real truth is fundamental for healthy relationships. It's also very fundamental for comfortable relationships. This is the best way of doing it.
Mhm. It was a win-win for everybody, where there was a
Indeed.
potential to have the whole train go off the rails after this amazing evening together. And
Hmm.
she could have got all in her feelings and gotten all upset, and he would have been completely confused. And oh my,
Yeah,
I was very proud of her. I said, "You definitely listened to my teaching. I'm so proud of you."
indeed.
I know we're sprinkling our wisdom everywhere there is available, right, Mr. Barry?
That's what we are here to do. Yes.
So if you'd like to talk to either one of us about any of this, if you're not feeling comfortable in your own skin, for God's sake, and certainly not in any of your relationships, Barry and I specialize on helping you feel comfortable in your own skin for sure. Because if
Absolutely.
you're not feeling comfortable in your skin, you're not going to feel comfortable with anybody else in your world. How could that be, right? It's
Exactly.
impossible.
Right.
So if you'd like to talk to me about that, you could go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. You can sign up to join my mailing list. You can also sign up to have a complimentary conversation with me if you click on what's holding you back from love. And then you can also send me an email at christine@theperfectcatch.com. And in my social media areas, in Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest, you can find me at The Perfect Catch. And then in YouTube, it's at Coach Christine Baumgartner, and at Instagram, it's Christine Baumgartner.
Nicely done.
Christine Boxleader.
You
I
got
know I'm
one.
getting better at saying all my accessories.
I understand.
And Barry, please tell them how they could reach you.
Certainly. So if you want help, same as with Christine, I offer help in my website too. You go to barryselby.com, which is my name, easy to find. On the homepage, there are two options. The first one at the top of the screen is to sign up for a mini session with me, where you can actually discover, discuss, and work through some of the stuff that's in the way in a real quick method. And if you like what we're talking about, we can go further. At the bottom of the screen is a link to just join my email list, because I send out emails every week, including replays of these talks. So you get to see that in live video, so to speak. If you want to find out more about my work, I have a book that's out on Amazon. The 10th anniversary edition is just on Amazon now. So yeah, if you go to look 50 Ways to Love Your Lover on Amazon, you can find that there. On social platforms, you can reach me, and it's all under Barry Selby on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Clubhouse, Pinterest, and YouTube, of course, because I have 1,500 videos on YouTube. And on Instagram, it's different. It's the real Barry Selby. But definitely follow me on all the platforms, because I put out good stuff about relationships as well. And if you check out my YouTube channel, you can basically subscribe to my channel and get 1,500 videos or so of really good content.
You could binge on Barry.
Indeed, you could.
And you can also see us on Roku, and you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts now. It's very exciting. We've arrived.
Yeah.
We're part
And
of
Spotify and all those places, yes.
Wow. And then we're always here every Thursday live at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern, and all the times in between. So please subscribe to the notifications, and also you can watch the replays, and you can share them with other people that you think might be having a challenge feeling comfortable in their skin. And also, we love comments and questions. If you have a topic that you'd like us to address, or a question that you have about something we've already covered in a podcast, please put them in the comments when you listen to the video. That would be perfect. Listen to our podcast.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness, this has been fun as usual, Barry.
As usual, it has. Thank you so much. It's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, really very fun. So we'll see you all next week.
Yes, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you again soon.